This is Ben from WP Answered, and in this beginner WordPress tutorial, you'll learn how to set up the WP Rocket plugin for optimum performance. You'll start by installing the plugin through the WordPress dashboard, and then navigate through each of the settings menus, configuring every setting along the way for maximum speed. These are the same settings I use for WP Rocket on CompeteThemes.com, and it's one of the reasons my site loads so fast. I hope you're excited to speed up your WordPress site. Now let's get started. The first thing you need to do is visit the WP Rocket website and get their plugin. WP Rocket's pricing is currently $49 for a single website, $99 for 3 websites, and $249 for unlimited websites. They've raised their prices a bit since they've launched, and they don't offer any coupons, so these are likely the lowest prices we'll see anytime soon. I've got a link to their site in the description below if you don't have a copy yet. If you've signed up, you can log into your account and then press the green button to download the plugin zip file. Next, log into your website, hover your mouse over the Plugins menu item, and click Add New. On the next page, click the Upload Plugin button to reveal the uploader, and either click the Choose File button or drag and drop the zip file directly onto the Choose File button. Press the Install Now button, wait a moment for the plugin to install, and then once the page reloads, you can click the blue Activate button to activate the plugin. Once the page reloads, if you hover your mouse over the Settings menu, you'll see the new WP Rocket menu item added to your site, so go ahead and click on that now. At the top, you'll see a notice about the cache preloading, which we'll discuss shortly, and you can choose to send them anonymous diagnostic data, but I'll opt out of that now. The dashboard page includes a link to your account, some help articles, and that sort of stuff, but more importantly, in the left sidebar, you'll find a series of menus which we'll work our way through now, and by the time we're done, your site will be loading much faster. First up, we have the cache menu. WP Rocket is primarily a caching plugin, and it automatically adds high-performance caching to your site the moment you activate it. Caching is probably the most effective way to speed up a WordPress site, and if you're not entirely sure what caching is, here's a helpful way to think about it. If I asked you, what is 1,638 divided by 91, you wouldn't know off the top of your head, would you? No, you would grab a calculator, run the numbers, and then get the answer, which is 18. Now, if I were to ask you again, what is 1,638 divided by 91, you would tell me right away that the answer is 18, because you've already run the calculations, and you now have this information stored. Caching works the same way. Your site runs a series of processes to create a page, and then WP Rocket stores a copy of that page in the cache. So next time someone visits your site, they see the cached copy instead of your site creating the page from scratch all over again. As I mentioned already, the caching is added to your site automatically when you activate WP Rocket, but there are a few more configuration options available inside the cache menu. The first option here turns on caching for mobile devices, and I definitely recommend leaving this enabled. As for the separate cache, you should only use this if your theme is not responsive or adds different features from only mobile devices. For instance, if you use a plugin like WP Touch or if you use the mobile theme setting in Jetpack, you should enable this option. Next up, we have the user cache option. You'll want to enable this option if you have a membership site or restricted content so that your site will load faster for logged in visitors. That said, if you're the only person logging into your site, I would leave it disabled. As a site admin, caching can get annoying when you're trying to customize your site, since your changes won't show up right away. But feel free to experiment and see if it works okay for you. Next, we have the cache lifespan, which you should leave at 10 hours by default. This means WP Rocket will empty the cache entirely and then run the cache preload again every 10 hours. If this is putting too much strain on your server, you can reduce it to every 24 hours instead, but try out 10 first and see how that goes. There are some really powerful options in the File Optimizations menu, so let's check that out now. In the basic settings, you should enable the Minify HTML option, which takes all of the white space out of your site's HTML. For example, a page like this will look like this once minified. Removing the white space reduces the total number of bytes, making the HTML file smaller, which means it will load faster. You should also use the option to combine Google Fonts. As a theme developer, I can tell you that your theme almost certainly uses Google Fonts, but even if it doesn't, there's no harm in leaving this option enabled. As for removing query strings, I leave this option unchecked. The performance gain is going to be small, and even though WP Rocket is careful about how they apply this option, there's just too much risk of breaking things for my taste, so I prefer to leave it off. Next, you can also minify CSS files to reduce their size, and when you enable this option, WP Rocket will warn you about its potential to break things on your site. But minification alone is unlikely to cause issues. You should also enable this option to combine CSS files, which results in fewer total files being loaded, which will speed up your site even further. Once again, WP Rocket warns about this possibly breaking things on your site, but go ahead and activate this one too. The option to optimize CSS delivery is really cool, and I highly recommend turning this on as well. Without getting too lost in the details, it basically allows your site to only load the styles it needs to look nice when someone first visits your site, and then load the rest of the CSS afterwards. In the JavaScript section, you have the same options to minify and concatenate JavaScript files just like you did for CSS. I recommend you enable both of these options. These options are more likely to break something on your site than the CSS ones, but it's still not that common. After we're done, visit your site and try out any interactive features you have, like an image slider, a lightbox pop-up, or a mobile menu that you can toggle. If the settings you just changed in WP Rocket do add a JavaScript error to your site, interactive features like sliders will stop working, and that will be a clear indicator that you need to disable the options to combine and minify JavaScript files. Next, deferring your JavaScript allows your site to show up and look fully loaded before it's actually loaded all the way, and it's a really nice way to give the illusion of a faster website. When you enable this option, you should always use safe mode as well. I can more or less guarantee you'll have broken features on your site if you uncheck this option and defer jQuery on your site. If you scroll up and click on the media section, you'll find some of WP Rocket's most effective performance tools. First, check this box to enable lazy loading for images. Lazy loading delays the loading of images until they actually show up on the screen, which means that if you have a post with 20 images, your site is only going to load the first few images at the top and not waste time and resources loading all 20 right away. You can also enable lazy loading for iframes and videos with this option, and you'll also see there's an option to display a preview image for YouTube videos that has to be clicked before the video is actually loaded. Personally, I don't think lazy loading for videos and iframes is necessary unless you frequently have more than one video on each page of your site, but feel free to try this out for yourself. The title of this next option is a bit misleading. It doesn't disable the use of emojis on your site, it just stops WordPress from loading a JavaScript file to support them. Since your browser already has this feature built in, you and your visitors will still see your emojis. For instance, I have this option enabled already, and yet the ghost emoji still shows up. Disabling WordPress embeds removes another JavaScript file, making your site a bit faster. WordPress does this thing where it auto-creates embeds like this when you paste links from Twitter and other sites, and personally, I find this really annoying when I'm linking to another WordPress site and it replaces the link with an embed box, so I always check this box to disable embeds. Lastly, you can use WP Rocket to serve WebP images, but it doesn't create them, it will only serve them if they've already been created. So, without getting too sidetracked here, I'm going to recommend that you leave this option unchecked, and if you want to use WebP images on your site, then try out Cloudflare or the Optimal plugin, which will both create and serve WebP images on your site. Now, let's move on to the preload menu. Pages on your site will only get cached after a real visitor loads them, unless you enable preloading, which will preload every page on your site so visitors always get served the faster, cached version of the page. This should definitely be enabled, and it also works best if you use the sitemap-based preloading. If you have the Yoast SEO plugin installed, you'll see this option to use the sitemap that the plugin generates, or you can paste the URL of your sitemap into this field here. The Google XML Sitemaps plugin is another good alternative if you need a way to add a sitemap to your site. Next, DNS pre-fetching lets your site load external resources faster. For instance, if you use Google Analytics, then your site is going to load at least one file from their website, And you can add these 3 URLs into the text box here to make Google Analytics load a little bit faster. And I'll include all 3 of those URLs in the description below so you can copy and paste them into your site. At this point, you've made the most impactful changes already with WP Rocket. The remaining menus won't have nearly as much effect on your load time, so I'm going to move a little bit quicker through the rest of these and we'll just make a few final recommendations. In the Advanced Rules menu, you can tell WP Rocket not to cache specific pages, cookies, and users. This is often necessary for e-commerce websites, but WP Rocket is already optimized for WooCommerce and easy digital downloads, so you probably won't need to add any pages here. In the Database Optimization menu, you can delete old entries stored in your database that you don't really need anymore. For instance, old post revisions, comments already marked as spam, and transients, which are just temporary information stored in your database, can all be quickly deleted. Before deleting any data here, you should always back up your website. Additionally, WP Rocket allows you to schedule the database cleanups, and you should only enable this if you've also scheduled site backups. If you use a CDN to load your site's static resources, then you can visit the CDN menu, enable this option, and then add the domain provided by your CDN for loading all of your static files. You can skip this step entirely if you don't use a CDN or if you use a CDN from either Cloudflare or Securi. Next up, the Heartbeat menu has a unique optimization inside. The Heartbeat API in WordPress periodically checks in to see if you've made any edits to a post and then will autosave. It also logs users out after a specific period of inactivity. While all of this is okay and helpful, it can be a drain on server resources, so I recommend checking this box, which will reduce the check-in time from once a minute to once every 2 minutes. This small change is helpful enough on its own, but you can also choose to disable the Heartbeat API entirely using the options below. In the add-ons section, you should enable the Google Analytics and Facebook Pixel optimizations if you use either of those on your site. And also, if you use either Cloudflare or Securi, you should enable those down here to ensure that WP Rocket uses an optimum configuration with their services. Lastly, the image optimization menu recommends their Imagify plugin, and while image optimization is extremely important, I recommend using the optimal plugin instead, and I've already got a complete walkthrough of that plugin as well if you'd like to check that out. That does it for the WP Rocket setup tutorial, and I hope that after watching this video, your site loads a lot faster. If you like this video and you want more WordPress tutorials, make sure to subscribe, and if you have any questions for me, just leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching.